Lots to discuss with Richard Berthelsen, CTV's Royal Commentator. Richard, good morning to you. So, timing, a coincidence or not, people are talking about the death of Princess Diana 25 years ago. And now, this latest interview that Meghan Markle has given. Let's begin with what she had to say in this article, Meghan, about her relationship with the royal family, why she decided to leave Frogmore, and just the fact that their existence, according to her, was upsetting things in the royal family. What do you make of it all?
Well, what I make of it all is that she's got a podcast that has premiered last week, and another edition came out this week. And there's obviously a campaign for her to do interviews and to put out more of her story, to encourage listeners to listen in on the podcast, because on the podcast discussion, she invariably talks quite a bit about herself and her perspective on events, and giving out different pieces of information about her experience with the royal family. And I think, this has been another interview that is going to be fairly polarizing for people, depending on where you stand on the issue of the Sussexes and Meghan in particular. I think for the American audience, there's going to be listening for some of it without maybe a knowledge of some of the details. In the United Kingdom, I think you'll find there's a much more negative response to some of the things she's saying, because some of the allegations she's making about the media and coverage of children are not even kind of the way the media is enabled to operate in the United Kingdom anymore, given some of the guidelines that they work with. So it's going to be a very polarizing thing. It will probably drive attention to her podcast, which I think is really what the intent is. And I'm not so sure there was an intent to make this all at the same time as the Diana death. I think that's actually an unfortunate decision, because it is a day, particularly on the 25th anniversary, when a lot of people are going to be remembering William and Harry's mother.
Yeah, and Meghan is being criticized for sort of upstaging that anniversary. What about Diana all these years later? I know we all remember where we were when we heard the news. When you reflect on it now, Richard, why do you think there was such tremendous grief over the loss of Princess Diana?
Well, hers was a story that was fairy tale in origin for the public. When she came into the public attention, she was a young woman, became a princess. It all seemed like it was, something out of a fairy tale book. We learned within about 10 years that was not the case, and things kind of went worse from there. And I think for a lot of people, it seemed that she was starting a new life as a single person, and, maybe had negotiated a more amicable relationship with her former husband. Her boys were growing up. They were relatively young, but she was still very much involved in her life. And here she was, snuffed out in something as mundane as a car accident, before she really had a chance to put a lot out there in terms of what she might do. So there's a lot of what if she had lived, what would have happened, what would she have done, what would her relationship have been. There's all of these things. And, this industry was really, furthered on her 20th anniversary, when William and Harry agreed to interviews, which they had never done before. They agreed to a garden, they agreed to a sculpture. All of these things kind of brought this back. And unfortunately, since then, we've had new developments, like the BBC case against Martin Bashir and how he got that famous interview. So the story always seems to have a new wrinkle, and it always seems to really, really engender public attention and interest, because the whole death and her life seems so tragic and, in a way, inexplicable.
And I want to ask you lastly, and unfortunately I don't have a lot of time left, but some people see a link, a similarity between Meghan and Diana, that there are these disruptors in the royal family. Do you see that?
No, I don't see a link between the two of them. Diana was, a woman from England, from an establishment class. Her family had been around the royal family. She would only have disrupted to a certain extent. Meghan is an American. She brings a very California sensibility to the institution. She's obviously in a fairly committed relationship and happy relationship with Prince Harry, and they are, equally reinforcing in what they're doing. So I don't think that's the case. I think where you do see Diana is in some of the actions by William, perhaps his stubbornness about things, his sort of sense of being able to relate to the public, and Harry being a bit willful. I think you see that in the both of them. But, I don't think it's beyond that. And I think, there may be some who might like to try and make that in relationship, but I don't think it really exists.
Richard, thank you so much. Glad to have you with us today. Richard Berthelsen.
You as well.